Can't remember. But anyway, that,
79.
huh?
79.
79, okay. Back then, the challenge was primarily to get people to understand, hey, food isn't what it's supposed to be. You're not getting enough. You need to take food supplements. You need to take vitamins. So that was what we spent most of our time doing, was getting people to understand that there really was a problem. And the problem was that our food was not providing the nutrition that we needed. But, 40 years later, that's not the problem anymore. We actually are living in a wellness revolution age. But the funny thing about that is incidences of disease are going up in spite of this wellness revolution. So anyway, that's why I did this presentation. And we're going to address very briefly, do I really need to take vitamin supplements? And if I do, how do I know which brand to buy? Okay, Ellen. Now, do I do it or you do it? Okay, thank you. How do you feel today? This is a list of complaints that was put together quite a number of years ago by Dr. Samuel Dreisen, just explaining that the first evidence of malnutrition is a conglomerate of non-specific complaints. And, doctors' offices are full of people that have these kinds of complaints. And is the doctor going to address it from a nutritional perspective? Probably not. But we do know that we can help people feel better. We don't have to have a diagnosis of a disease or anything like that. All we need is to get them to trust us and listen to us and give the products a try. So now let's go to the next slide. The state of our health. We used to be a very healthy nation, but we have fallen in life expectancy. This says JAMA, but actually it's from the World Health Organization, I believe. We used to rank up there about 11th, and now we've dropped down to 42nd, which is pretty startling. So the next slide, Ellen. Even the CDC is getting in the act on this. They tell us actually that our lifespan is surging. I don't know about that. I had ancestors that lived to ripe old ages, and a lady lived down the street, lived to 104 and all that. So I'm not sure how they figure all that. But nonetheless, we have a huge gap between our lifespan and our health span. And this is where we as Shaklee people can do such a wonderful service for the people that we know that are willing to listen to what we have to say. Okay, let's do the next one, Ellen. No, go back one. There we go. Okay, how do we fill the quality of life gap? And this part of the information does not come from the CDC. This comes just from a conglomerate of sources and we all know. We have better diagnostics, so diseases can be diagnosed sooner. People are not smoking as much. Exercise, everybody and his brother is running around on the streets. They don't look like they're having much fun, though. They all have a pained expression on their face. The walkers look much happier. We can have a healthy home. Green products are now on the in. You can use targeted solutions for certain health issues. We have pregnancies that are healthier. We have healthy weight issues, and then there's core nutrition. So those are all areas that can address closing that gap. So, all right, let's go to the next one. Now, who does say that supplements work or that they help? And this is Dr. David Harper, from the director of the Center for Human Nutrition at UCLA. And he says, we have a substantial body of data showing that if everyone took a few supplements every day, they could significantly lower their risk of a multitude of serious diseases. I mean, that is a pretty significant statement to make. So let's move on and see who else has something to say about if supplements help. There's the Council for Responsible Nutrition. By the way, Shaklee is one of the founding members of that council. It is the professional organization for professional nutrition companies. Tells us daily use of E, C, calcium, and a multivitamin with folic acid can cut heart disease, protect your vision, prevent hip fractures, reduce neural tube defects. And then the American Heart Association recommends, voila, 25 to 50 grams of soy daily. Authors a conclusion. Among women with breast cancer, soy food consumption was significantly associated with decreased risk of death and recurrence. Now, this stands in stark contrast to what is popular within the oncology community. They have been scared away of soy due to some of that misinformation that I mentioned earlier. It even has filtered its way into the medical community. But we know in Shaklee, if we've been in it very long and if we've used much of their soy products, it's my main source of protein every day is one of the Shaklee, one or two of the Shaklee soy products. So I've been doing that now for 40 years, and it has been a wonderful, wonderful thing for me. Okay, let's go on one more slide there. All right, who else? And this is where we run into a problem. This is where people get thoroughly confused. All those TV ads, websites, and infomercials. And I've been noticing of late that some of the ads are saying FDA
approved.
I'm not sure they used approved, but the one I saw today was I can't remember the term that they used, but it was not it was a phony. I'm going to use the president's term, fake news, because the FDA is not in the business of doing that.
Yeah.
The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, their job is to protect our health by regulating to some degree or another the area of food and food supplements, and that's under the F, and then drugs. And the standards for each of those two categories is quite different. The FDA's role in food and drugs is mostly reactive. Now, there are some basic rules and regulations that you have to follow. In the food supplement industry, the primary one is that you cannot make a medical claim. In other words, you cannot claim your product cures diseases. But other than that, there's just very few regulations. And mostly they get involved as a result of a lot of consumer complaints. And then they will jump in. And if you all remember, a number of years back, there was a product on the market called Carl Calcium, or Calcium Carl. I can't remember which way it was. Anyway, they had these long infomercials, and they were making all sorts of claims about cancer and stuff like that. And they came down on them because they were making a medical claim. And Shaklee, as you all may realize, is exquisitely careful to keep us out of that area of ever assuming or sounding as if we are making claims that our products cure disease, because that is against the rules and regulations. So anyway, websites, some of the websites are very deceptive. You know, let's say you've got a health issue and you're going to do research. I kind of get chills when people tell me they're fixing to do research on some health issue, and I'm thinking, oh my, what are they going to find? So anyway, you go to a website and you'll put in something and you'll get all this information, and guess what? It links you to a marketing site. Yeah. So it's a front, if you will, to get people to go to your site and buy your products. So that's that I consider that deceptive. The health food stores, my observation about health food stores is when I go in one, which is rarely, I used to go in them before Shaklee, I would go in them occasionally, and I didn't think anybody in there looked very healthy. And they still don't look very healthy. And I don't think that the people that work there could possibly have the information that the consumer really needs to know before they make a purchase. And so the next thing I'd like to say is all these claims that are made, are they actually backed by published clinical studies that show, excuse me, just a minute. I apologize. I've been, Ellen, you may have to take over.
My grandmother always said, hold your hand straight up.
I've had a cold, and now my throat's tickling. I'm sorry. Okay. How many claims are actually backed by published clinical studies showing measurable results? Very, very few. Okay, where are we, Ellen? Move on. Okay. Talking about the FDA again. Did you know that it doesn't require proof of purity? In fact, there is a maximum contaminant level allowed on ingredients, both domestic and imported. Did y'all know that? I can't hear you, I guess, because you're muted.
No, we're muted.
But that's true. And further on, I'm going to talk about an FDA site on lead and multivitamins, and I'll take you back to this comment here. The FDA does not require proof of potency, that you have the right amount of the nutrients in the product, or that actually the label is accurate, that what's on the label is actually in the product in the amount it says. And they do not require proof of performance, that the product does any good. Okay. Okay, it is truly a let the buyer beware market. Now, in the old days, when I was a girl growing up, everybody knew that expression. And I grew up in a small town. My mother was very careful about which grocery store she shopped in, which dairy she brought milk from, because we had local dairies, you know, what farmers produce the best produce. Life's not like that today, even with the, you know, the fresh buy local movements that are going on. It's still, supermarkets do huge businesses. So of 22 calcium products tested at the University of Florida, 8 were contaminated with lead. 8 of 21 brands had high levels of pesticides, and this is calcium. Mm-hmm. Recent FDA report found lead in 300 plus children's prenatal and women's multis, including 5 Flintstone products. Now, that's what, when I was talking the slide or two before about the maximum contaminant level. If these 300 some odd products do have that lead in them, why have they not been recalled? Mm-hmm. And the reason they have not been recalled is because the amount that's in there does not exceed that maximum contaminant level. But it's still lead in there. And as we know, Shaklee would not tolerate that. Any detectable contaminant is not tolerated. But I find this extremely disturbing. 5 Flintstone products were on that list. And as you'll see on the TV, everybody is brothers advertising these little chewy, gummy, fruity things. I mean, every week there's a new company that's come out with a new vitamin product, you know, multivitamin. And it's just all this expensive advertisement that goes into it, and probably very little money goes into any kind of research. In a consumer lab test, there were 12 of 39 multivitamins that failed the dissolution, ingredient purity, label accuracy tests. So that's what the marketplace is like. Go on to the next one, Ellen. Down, one more. Mark McClellan, who was the FDA commissioner, I don't think he still is, but this is a quote from him. He actually says, in many ways, the dietary supplement market has been, in effect, a buyer beware market. people need to get what they are paying for. And you know, I think most consumers make the assumption that if a product is in the store, on the shelves, that somebody has said it's okay. And that's kind of the barrier that we have to break through, I think, when we are talking to people about Shaklee, especially if they are already out there buying vitamins. They are assuming that what they are buying is quality because whoever they bought it from said it was. But they don't ask the questions. They actually, I don't think, know the right questions to ask. Okay, Ellen, go to the next one. So all this is very confusing to the consumer. All these different words: natural, organic, quality, balance, detoxify, feed the cells, research, clinical studies. Lots of companies are doing research or say they're doing research. And for the layperson, they don't understand the difference between a little research and really a clinical study that's been published. When you see clinical studies, it means that people have been the subject of the study, not animals, and it's not a meta-analysis. It's a clinical study on live human beings. And that's a big difference. But the whole research list, I mean, they're just all different types of research from the top to the bottom. And double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical studies, that's the gold standard, and that's what Shaklee does. Now, underneath there are the lists of a number of different companies that are out there. Some of them have been around a number of years. Some of them have fairly high standards. Some of them, I don't know what their standards are. I do know that some of them, like Professional Products, which is the last listing there, Metagenics is one of them. And they primarily market to chiropractors and naturopathic type physicians. And I do know that one of their products is on that FDA site list that has lead in it. And it has to be either a prenatal or a children's or a woman's vitamin, because that's what that list is comprised of. So my assumption is that most of these companies, they don't do that on purpose. They just don't know it because they don't do the testing, or they don't have the quality control on the raw ingredients, or they don't even control the raw ingredients. They just place an order with a laboratory that makes supplements. I mean, there are numerous ones around the country. I remember Dr. Bruce Miller years ago talking about visiting all these different labs. He was trying to prove to himself that Shaklee wasn't so much better than the rest of them. This is when he was brand new in it. And he found out that everything Shaklee said was true, and these other companies just did not have the kind of standard that Shaklee had. Okay, Ellen, move on. What should I do? Ask the right questions. Does the company guarantee no contaminants? I can't tell you how many times I've had conversations with people and they say, well, I'm using a good product. I don't want to be too aggressive or too overbearing to say, well, how do you know it's a good product? But anyway, people, like I said, assume if it's out there, it's for sale, it must be okay. So, but you need to ask that question. Does the company guarantee there are no contaminants? Does the company guarantee the amounts on the label are in the product? Is there published proof the products work? I don't know how many times that if somebody asks that question, I think they might make a different choice in what they're buying. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, now we're going to kind of morph into the Shaklee difference. And this is a quote from this lady whose name I cannot pronounce. She used to be the vice president of Botanicals International, which is the largest importer of herbs and nutritional ingredients in the country. And this, she says, Shaklee is definitely our pickiest and most strict customer. They have specifications beyond and above the specifications set by our other customers. I tell my friends that if they want to buy quality, they have to buy Shaklee. I mean, and that is right from the horse's mouth. She doesn't have any vested interest in making that comment. Okay, the next one. This is kind of repetitious. I like for this to be able to stand alone. If I was just going to talk to somebody about the Shaklee difference. So anyway, we're going to go back over purity. Every time a raw material is presented to a company that's going to make a product, it has what is known as a certificate of analysis, which means that the people that are distributors of that raw material are certifying that X, Y, and Z is not in their product. They have analyzed it and they have found that there's no what. Shaklee does so much more than that. Our raw materials are tested for over 350 contaminants. The USP, if you will find vitamins that have a USP certification on their label, and that means they have been certified by
pharmaceutical, pharmacopoeia.
Yeah, pharmacopoeia. And that means that 80 contaminants have been tested for. So you can see we're so far above that. Way higher than pharmaceutical standards. We do 83 tests, 83,000 tests. And I think now it's up to 100 annually. Vitae alone has been tested 349 times. I mean, that is phenomenal. That little green, 40 years ago, it was 4 shiny little green tablets. Barbara will remember that. And then it became 2 oblong green tablets, and now we've got oblong green and dark oblong green and oblong gold. So it's morphed. Okay, and then our soy, it's more than organic, and our soy protein is non-GMO. It's also water-washed beans, which is a very important thing to know about it because that protects the isoflavones.
Bobby, would you mind explaining a little bit about more than organic, better than organic?
Oh, sure. Beyond organic is what Dr. Daggy is saying.
Right.
And what the organic primarily deals with how the plant is treated once it's put in the ground. I don't know that there's any testing of the ground prior to that certification. There may be. I don't know about that. But it has nothing to do with what might be in the air. And my original understanding was it didn't have anything to do with what might be in the ground. But I've read something that made me question that, and I'm going to ask Dr. Daggy about that. But organic, at the health care professional workshop in Atlanta, Dr. Daggy was talking at length about this, and he made an astounding statement, I thought. He said the most contaminated organic raw material that they had ever tested was organic green tea. Well, everybody and his brother is drinking green tea. Everybody and his brother is making green tea. You know, what about Bigelow? What about Lipton? What do they know? I don't even know what they claim to be organic, but organic is limited. And we need to understand that. Talking about lead in vitamins, a number of years back, I forget which product it was, but when they were doing the testing before proceeding to make the product, they were finding lead and they could not figure out where it came from. And it took them quite a while, but they actually went back. I think it was in another country. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, the leaves were being pulverized by ball bearings. And inside the ball bearings, the weight was lead. And they found that. That's how exquisitely careful they are. And, you can take it to the bank. If it's a Shaklee product, it's going to be safe. Number one, it's going to be safe, and it's going to work. It's going to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, is that enough, Ellen, on that?
Yeah, but I tell you one thing that I heard at conference. I don't remember who. Maybe it was Dr. Daggy, or maybe even Roger. But the thing that just really impacted me that I never thought about was the runoff, of water from other areas.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot about that.
And I was talking to Mark. He's a chemist. And he was saying that beyond organic, if people really, really did understand that it would just make such a difference because, I was just thinking of just a layperson's example. Say you plant an organic garden in your yard, and your neighbor is spraying the hay pastures with pesticides and chemicals that are running into your yard, and Shaklee makes sure that does not happen.
Well, that's true, and it's also air pollution.
Yeah.
And that's herbicides and pesticides can be transferred that way, and also in countries that still have leaded gasoline, if a field is close to a highway. So there are all sorts of
So they go that extra mile to test that raw material over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
Okay.
They really do. Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, let's talk about potency. Our soy protein, perfectly balanced amino acids in identical ratio to those found in the human body. And I already mentioned that about the non-GMO and water wash. Now the Flavamax. The Flavamax blueberries are picked in Nova Scotia in August, the right time to maximize their anthocyanidine content. Now, would you believe it? I mean, it's just amazing. Antioxidant value tested against 7 competitors for potency of its flavonoids, and Shaklee exceeded them all. And it's that extra care that we do. And see, people don't realize what they are not getting. I like to say, and I meant to say it earlier, one of the things about this presentation, and particularly the first part of it, is I hope you're going to find out what you didn't know that you didn't know. Because there's so much out there that people don't know that they take for granted. And unfortunately, it's a mistake to do that. Now, the resveratrol, the super great product. Oh, the excitement when that product was first introduced at Shaklee was just incredible. Originally, it was just liquid. Now we have the liquid gels. They make the point about not using powder because it affects potency. It's 99% pure, and it's a muscadine extract. It's not juice. Juice is limited. Where I grew up in South Georgia, there's scuppernong and muscadine arbors all over the place. And it's my understanding that the best arbor in the country is in South Georgia, and Shaklee has a long-term contract with them, so no one else can buy their products. And also this product was actually put together at the University of Georgia in Athens. So as a Georgian, I'm proud of that.
Me too.
Right, both of us. Okay, move on.
One thing I want to share about I love sharing this story because it's true. I mean, we have lots of stories, but I love it when I know, I have a great example. Our alfalfa, most of people, don't have a clue about what Shaklee's alfalfa is. I tell people all the time, if I could only have a few products, alfalfa would be at the top of the list after Herblax.
Yeah.
but together they're both great. But my brother was a truck driver, and he was sitting in a Waffle House, and there were some truck drivers sitting in a booth behind him, and they were around Norman, Oklahoma, where our Shaklee plant is. And
was.
Yeah. And so Eddie said, one of the guys said, "Oh my goodness, I just got to Shaklee, and they turned down a semi-load of alfalfa." And the other guy said, "Why?" And he said, "Well, their moisture content, they're the pickiest people that we have to deal with, but the moisture content was not up to their standards, and so they just turned it down." And the guy said, "Well, what are you going to do with a load of alfalfa?" And he said, "Oh, I'm going to take it down the street to GNC. They'll take anything."
Oh, yes.
So,
Ellen, you need to write that down because I had forgotten that story.
yeah.
Yes.
So
yeah, that's scary.
That is who our company is.
Okay. You want to go to the next slide because I lost your. Okay. The Shaklee Difference performance. And the soy protein, we have 4 clinical studies with proven low glycemic response. This is extremely important. We're living in a carb phobia world right now. And, people think anything that's got a carb in it is going to poison them. It's ridiculous. Every cell in the body has got to have glucose. It can't function without it. But there are good carbs and bad carbs, or low glycemic carbs and high glycemic carbs. So we want to have the low glycemic carbs. And that's the kind of carbs that are in the Shaklee protein products, all of them really. And they give you what we call a low glycemic response. Now, I'm an old ex-medical technologist, and I used to run glucose tolerance tests on people that suspected of having diabetes. So you give them a certain amount of a syrupy drink that had a certain amount of glucose in it, and then you would take their blood samples through over a period of time. Some of you all may have even had the test done yourselves. And if they're diabetic, their blood sugar would shoot way up, and it would stay up because the pancreas was not responding with insulin. Even with a diabetic, the response should be low glycemic with the protein. Now, if I was dealing with a diabetic, particularly a type 1 diabetic, I would take it very, very slow. But I will tell you a story about a young man, a young boy he was, in Georgia. His sister was in the choir with me. And Ellen, this young man, was Downs. And he had numerous, health issues. And he was a diabetic. And so he was a teenager at this point, and his kidneys were being affected. And so the doctors had told them to take him off protein because, protein is hard on the kidneys. I'll put a caveat in there. Animal protein is hard on the kidneys. Vegetable protein is not. It took me a little while to convince Debbie that the energizing soy protein would be helpful for him. She finally, and she was his aunt. She's not his mother, but she was his aunt. She really had custody of him. And she was just such a sweet, wonderful Christian girl and loved that boy and took really good care of him. Anyway, got him on the energizing soy protein, and he responded beautifully, almost immediately. And she came to me with tears in her eyes, thanking me for introducing her to that. It's just so important for everybody to get high quality protein, but a diabetic that's having kidney issues really needs this type of protein. Okay, Nutriferon, Cornell Medical College clinical study proved increased activity of natural killer cells. The discoverer of interferon, Dr. Kojima, is the one that formulated this product after 40 years of research, and we have an exclusive on his recipe, if you will, his formula. It is a product that helps to modulate the immune response in far as creating new interferon. Now, I don't know how many of y'all are aware that interferon has been synthesized by the pharmaceutical industry. It's used as kind of last ditch with people that have, the ones that I know of, they had melanoma. And so kind of as last ditch effort here, where they put them on interferon. Interferon is extremely expensive and extremely toxic. And unfortunately, both of the people that I know that were treated that way did not survive. But we have a product that helps our own body produce the amount of interferon that it needs at a specific time. It's an amazing product, and no one has anything like it. Then we've got the performance of Vivix. We've got two kind of studies. We have the first one was the response to high-fat, high-carbohydrate meal. When you eat that kind of meal, your body throws off or produces a lot of free radicals, and the free radicals attack the cells. So what happens is this NRF2 is a positive response against all that oxidizing that goes on with the free radicals. And the Vivix, if it's taken after a high-fat, high-carb meal, will neutralize that response. And then the most recent one is on the telomeres. And Ellen, it should be TELO. I made a mistake there. So if you want to make that change when you take this down, you can do that. I've changed it on mine. But the telomere study is so exciting. And that was done, it's just a little tiny study. It's not one of these big peer-reviewed published studies, but they're working on one. So there's more to come on the positive response of telomeres, to a diet that contains Vivix in it. And for those of you who were not at conference, you may not know about Dr. Blackburn's book on telomeres. You can buy it at Barnes & Noble. I'm sure you can get it online. It's written in layman's language, and it's all about the telomere effect and what a positive effect it has on our health. Okay, let's move on to the next one. All right, I talked about published clinical studies. We've got over 90. Actually, I think we've got over 100 now. In journals such as the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, American Journal of Cardiology, Journal of Applied Physiology, Journal of the American College of Nutrition, Journal of Lipidology, and then we have the landmark study. Now, other companies will tell you they've got studies. Some of them are published in marketing magazines, they're not this type of study. These studies, you could go to a university library or a medical library or online if you knew how to get in, and you can look these studies up and you can read them in professional publications. This is the thing that sets us so far apart from anybody else. Okay, move on. The Shaklee difference. I mentioned the landmark study on the bottom of that last page. Does it matter to your health? Well, the landmark study, it was the largest study of its kind ever done on 300 participants from a pool of 1,000. It was the first ever done on supplement users of 20 or more years. It measured 3 groups of people: non-supplement users, Brand X supplement users, and Shaklee supplement users. And it was conducted at UC Berkeley School of Public Health by Dr. Block, who was the nutrition researcher and epidemiologist. I mean, this is top drawer stuff. And guess who paid for it? Shaklee paid for it. The deal was, when Roger went to Dr. Block and said told her what he wanted, and he wanted to study to see if this company that he had just bought, if these products really could be measured in the effect that they had on people's health. And Dr. Block said, sure, they'd be glad to do it, as long as he understood that no matter how it turned out, it was going to get published. good, bad, or indifferent. Now, that's a high risk for any other company except Shaklee. I'm sure Roger, might have had a few little wonders about, is this really going to work out? And as the study progressed, so I remember the story going, Roger had some contact with Dr. Block, and he said she was so excited she could hardly stand it, that she was so excited about the results. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, Ellen. And these are 4 of the results. And this, just think about when people go to the doctor for their annual checkup. They want to be, their hearts are going to be checked, their brain will be checked, and that they'll check their reflexes and all that kind of stuff. And they'll probably have a blood test called C-reactive protein, which measures stress, actually inflammation. It's really a measure of inflammation at the cellular level. And the Shaklee participants in the study across the board had markedly lower levels of these different things. They had 33% lower levels of triglycerides. They had 11% lower levels of cholesterol ratio. They had 36% lower levels of homocysteine. Homocysteine, maybe you've heard of it, maybe you haven't. It's a byproduct of protein metabolism, and it affects the brain if it's too high in the blood. And one of the things that keeps it at a normal level is B complex. And then 59% had lower levels of C-reactive protein, which it measures biological stress or inflammation at the cellular level. And more and more they're talking about that inflammation is at the root of so many of the diseases that we're suffering from. Okay, let's go to number 21. Does it matter to your health? Yes, according to the landmark study conclusion. And this was a little side thing on there. Shaklee's not really talked about this much. It's kind of hidden away in the fine print of the study. But it's the people who took the supplements had long-term had markedly better health. And the little asterisk is about Medicare patients. The average Medicare patient, 65 or older, fills 19 prescriptions annually, 19 different ones. While the average Shaklee user of the same age who was in the study, and actually I think the Shaklee users were a little older on average, who was in the study, is on 0.6 medications annually. I think that by itself should be enough to have somebody think, oh, I want that. Where can I get it? And how quickly can I get my hands on it? That is a phenomenal thing. The healthcare industry, about the largest industry in the country, but it's not about healthcare, it's about sickness care. What we do in Shaklee is truly about healthcare. Okay, let's go to the next one. Does it matter to your health again? Because of Shaklee science, Shaklee products perform differently. Their aim is to create balance, to let the body naturally heal itself. By contrast, stimulation does not create balance. Shaklee's purpose is to give your body the right tools to create its own proper balance. And that was Cindy Latham, who was with Shaklee at the time. She'd been with Shaklee for years. And that's almost verbatim a Dr. Shaklee quote, almost. Not quite, but almost. And that's what is so important for us to understand. This is not about treating disease. This is about building health, about helping the body restore its balance. Okay, the next one. Who uses the products? Well, if you've seen Time Life's The Greatest Adventurers of All Time, there's 7 of the 20-some-odd adventure stories were fueled by Shaklee nutrition. Olympic athletes, When I did this, 54 gold medal winners powered by Shaklee, but there's well over 100 medals that have been earned. And I don't know if anybody saw the women's hockey team last week, but they surely made us proud. There were 3, I believe, members of the team that were pure performance athletes. And then we have a wonderful array of healthcare professionals who have affiliated themselves with Shaklee. Dr. Miller, a dentist from Texas, and boy, did I learn a lot going to seminars when he would hold seminars. And Dr. Cheney, who is a cancer researcher at some University of North Carolina, I think. Or is it, yeah, it's North Carolina. And he does wonderful reports, and he's done wonderful seminars for us. Dr. Sandy Bavacqua, she's a cellular biologist. And then Rusty Oast, who is a pharmacist. I believe he is now retired, but he's an Association of Natural Medicine Pharmacists. He was in the last class of pharmacy school that studied herbs. His wife, June, was also a pharmacist, and she's graduated like 4 or 5 years later. And she did not get what he got about herbs. And then there's everyday consumers like you and I. And aren't we grateful that we can be counted in that group? Okay, the next one. Has it mattered to my health personally? Before Shaklee, when I was 42 years old, I was taking Tylenol and drugstore vitamins, and I felt awful. I had headaches, mood swings, weepy times, caught everything the kids brought home from school, wanted to take a nap every day. Within 2 weeks of being on Shaklee, all of that began to turn around. So after Shaklee, at age 80 plus, that's me standing up there with my breakthrough board at last year's conference. Okay, that's it. No, I have one more page because I want to address with this crowd the conclusion. Wrong direction. Yeah, the Shaklee. Okay, can it save you money? Well, if you think about the healthcare costs, I think that says it right there. But let's just compare it to some of the other products that are on the market. And now, Shaklee's not had a price increase in quite some time. These are not numbers from this year, from these other products. Whether their price has gone up or not, I couldn't tell you because I haven't been back out there looking. But when I did this, in order to get 100% of biotin and multivitamins, and you know, that's one of the things I always ask somebody when they say they take a vitamin. I said, well, how about how much biotin is in it? And usually it's like 10%. And then I'll tell them, well, that company's not interested in your health. They're only interested in your money because you should have 100% at least. So to get 100% of biotin, you would have to take 10 Centrum Silver. So that would cost you 90 cents. To get 100% of biotin in Nature Made, you'd have to take 10, and that would cost you 80 cents. To get 100% of biotin in Centrum Ultra Women's, you'd have to take 10, it costs you $1.20. To get 100% of biotin in 2 Vital E, it costs you 45 cents. Well, I think it's 48 cents now. I need to go back and I think Vital E Gold is 48. I believe that's right. Anyway, considerably cheaper. And this is a quote that Jane Brody wrote, and this is quite a number of years ago. For every $1 you spend on nutritional supplements, you can save $28 on healthcare costs. I don't know where she got that from, because I think there are a lot of people taking a lot of vitamins that maybe are not saving all that much on healthcare because their vitamins are not doing maybe what they should. But she does say that nutrition is a key to better health for the elderly in her book, and she did a study looking at using underlying good multivitamin for short-term memory, abstract thinking, improved cognition, etc. So I don't, really cost should not be an issue. And then, of course, we have a free product program, and you can get your products free if you love them and want to use them, and we'll share them with other people. So the rest of this would be, I would segue into the, oh my goodness, it's 9 o'clock. We need to quit. I didn't realize how.
That's fine. That's fine. I had let people know it would probably be about an hour. But I'm going to unmute everybody, or you can unmute yourself.
Well, let's just let me read this quote here from the Journal of American Medical Association. It says, in the coming decades, the most important determinants of health and longevity will be the personal choices made by each individual. And so that's really what we're talking about, is making choices. And then my editorializing here is, good health is not cheap, and bad health is very expensive. And since Shaklee vitamins are proven to reduce your risk of disease, what is your choice? Would you rather pay now to protect your health, or pay later to try to regain your health? Yes, so any questions or comments, or anybody like to edit? Do you think?
Excellent presentation.
Well, thank you, Barb. I appreciate it.
I have a comment, Bobby. On the soy protein, I was extremely hypoglycemic, so I was on the other end of the spectrum.
Well, I was there with you, Phyllis. I understand.
And I had tried everything for years, all different proteins, all different vitamins, diet, vegetarian, blended salads, vegetable juices, no matter what. And nothing regulated it. I was taking Schiff and Solgar, the best in 1970s, but they did a little bit, but I was still having a lot of problems. Mood swings and feeling terrible and shaky and everything. So when I was dragged to a Shaklee meeting, absolutely, I was so skeptical, didn't believe anything else would work. I'd heard it all. But when they talked about it and they said it was honestly different, the girl that was doing the talk was Lynn McLuhan, and she was doing this same Curcio diet of blended salads and vegetable juice, so that gave her some credibility. And because they told me I could get it at a discount and I could get my money back if it didn't work, I agreed to take it. And I also heard the business opportunity at that time too, the benefits. And of course, I was working all different jobs, never had a career, worked whatever job I could find. So that was kind of interesting. That was kind of piqued my interest. But the thing was, they were guaranteeing me better health. And that is why I started on Shaklee. And the protein took me a few days before I tried the protein, because other soy stuff I would break out with. But when I tried that first drink, I'll never forget that day. I took the drink, went out, was doing my errands, and I was chipper and happy and everything else, and came home, and I was still chipper and happy. And this is what convinced me, because normally I'd come home, collapse, and be down and depressed and down again. And it didn't happen. And that's the way it's been for all these many, 30, going on 38 years to the end of June.
Yeah. I was hypoglycemic also, Phyllis, and I actually had that glucose tolerance test.
I did too.
Yeah. And like I say, it was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And actually, I had these headaches. I had like 3 or 4 headaches a week. Yeah. And I went 2 weeks and marked it on the calendar, no headaches. I was sold. Yeah, that's a wonderful story. And that blood sugar is crucially important.
And I still struggle to this day. If I eat too much sugar or anything else, I go back into that thing. I go depressed and everything else, and get migraines and other things. My body's still very sensitive at this age. But as long as I have that protein every day, my cocoa protein, the cocoa one is the only one that works. Nothing else works. I've tried them that Shaklee has, only the cocoa protein. Now, you brought up I have one question. I have a gal whose mother, and I was hoping she would be on here tonight, but she's not. Her mother has severe kidney failure. She's diabetic. She has heart problems and so forth. And she's on dialysis 3 times a week.
Wow.
what can we do for her? She bought the meal shake, the life shake for her in strawberry. And I believe she bought she bought vitamin D, I think, or something for her. Yeah, only 2 things she bought so far. Okay, comments.
For dialysis, she needs lots of lecithin.
Oh, okay. Okay. Alfalfa, yes or no?
Oh, yes, absolutely. But not too many people talk about the lecithin. I have some things in my file I would be happy to share.
Okay, great. Okay, how should we,
I'll send them to Elle. That would
okay.
be Ellen.
Oh, well, if you see Phyllis Hughes, see there, Phyllis? All right,
Yeah.
Phyllis at phyllisehughes.com.
Okay.
That's all one word, Phyllis at phyllisehughes.com. That will get it to me. Just one word, make
Either
it
way, Barb, I can get it to her if you send it.
But I appreciate that. I knew somebody would have the information for me because she's desperate to do something. And her mother's only 70.
Wow.
And she's on a ton of medicines plus dialysis.
Well, lecithin is one you can take a lot of without it being harmful.
Okay.
Yes, Ellen?
Well, I was also say when it comes to lecithin is amazing for depression.
Yes, it is.
I've been taking like three or 4 a day. Should I take more?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Phyllis. I was on a call with Dr. Browse one night, and most of everybody that knows me well knows that I've dealt with a lot of depression.
Yeah, me too.
And so he was talking about bipolar is what he was talking about that night. And he was talking about a lady that had bipolar that was taking lecithin, and she was taking 24 a day.
Yeah.
It took her to that level to get relief.
Wow.
And it's so interesting how we can do at Shaklee, because everybody that knows me knows I take a lot of Shaklee. But for some reason, I don't know why, but it had just dropped off of my radar. I was not taking lecithin at the time, and it's one of the most inexpensive ones we have.
Mm-hmm.
It surely is.
And I just immediately got some and started taking. I started with 12 a day.
Okay.
And within a couple of weeks, I was telling such a difference that I could not believe it. And now I take about 6 to 8 a day.
Okay. Thank you. Because that's one of the things I felt all my life too, is depressive.
Everybody needs it. Lecithin is for the brain.
It's also good for weight loss.
Yeah.
Well, it affects the brain very definitely. When I first started taking lecithin, which was fairly early on, I started out with Vitally, Protein, Herblax, and B Complex.
Yep.
But anyway, I got into the lecithin, and my kitchen, the sink was by the window, and the refrigerator was across the room behind me. And I was 42 years old, and sometimes I would need to leave the sink and go to the refrigerator to get something, and I couldn't remember what I was going to get. Mm-hmm. And I started taking lecithin, and then I noticed, I know what I'm going to get out of the refrigerator. It really does something wonderful for your brain.
It protects your nerve ending.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just had ankle surgery, and I am off all the medications that they told me to take. In fact, I only took 3.
Yeah.
I was done with them because I figured in that amount of time, my body had enough Shaklee buildup, and I've done nothing but Shaklee.
Right.
And it's not even, I'm sure it's swelling, but it's not bothersome in the cast at all.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Is it good for the burning feet? Because my daughter has burning feet, and someone else.
Oh my gosh! If your daughter should try a Futchel with our products, and soaking your feet in like the Basic Age, the Enfusel bath lotion, any of those, and then as soon as she brings them out, open lecithin caps and rub them into the feet. The calluses go away. It's incredible. I never had feet that looked like tennis feet because I always did the lecithin and put an old pair of socks on right away and just enjoy it. I mean, you'll see a difference in the almost.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is Marge. I have calluses on my feet. This is going to work great. Thank you.
Yes, it is, Marge.
Excuse me for asking, but when you talk about burning feet, is it anything like, what is it called? Neuropathy?
Oh, neuropathy.
Neuropathy.
I think so, on that order.
It's like pins and needles and that kind of pain?
Yeah, and burning and so forth, yeah.
And burning, okay. Because I have a friend who has terrible neuropathy in his feet, keeps him up at night, and he can't stand to put pressure on his feet.
Right.
You know, I heard a guy at a meeting in Dallas that had neuropathy, and he started using Vivix and got amazing results for Vivix for neuropathy pain.
Oh, but do you know how much he took of the Vivix?
Well, you know, I think he was taking it twice a day. And, you know, the more and more research that we get, the more and more I'm taking it twice a day.
Yeah.
Well, you know, Connie, I guess Connie didn't get her power back on, but her guy, the blind, tell me? Oh,
Daryl.
Okay. Well, anyway, her guy who's blind and he's just a wonderful guy, had neuropathy and has it no longer.
Wow.
And what did he do?
What do you take?
He took vitamin E and other things, but he didn't have a lot of money to spend, and she created wonders for him.
Yeah.
Because
wasn't he on dialysis also? He's a diabetic.
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so he was on dialysis.
Well, he has a kidney replacement.
Right. But as I recall, when the story was told originally, that he was on dialysis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and he's waiting for a
Kidney transplant.
Okay.
What do you say about vinegar?
Now, since I have all you brains on here, one of my ladies, she's my age too, a month older. She had cancer of the uterus, and they took out so many lymph nodes, especially in her right leg, and she has severe lymphedema in her left leg. So she has to use this pump and everything else. What do you recommend for that? Anything to help keep the swelling down? She's on Shaklee, but she's not taking a lot of
lots of alfalfa.
Yeah.
But I would also say, girls, and I am Shaklee through and through, but I discovered when I was very new in Shaklee, somebody in Shaklee sent out these couple of pages on vinegar, apple cider vinegar. It has to be apple cider, none of this white stuff or anything like that. And I started using that as a young mom and a new Shaklee person. And then, of course, life got busy and I got away from it for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, Donnie was bringing books home from the store and he brought a book home on vinegar. And I said, oh my gosh, I can throw away my papers that you could hardly read. They had been so recycled. And I have been doing it ever since. My entire family does it. It is wonderful for everything under the sun. And
I agree.
Could you tell us how you use it?
Lymphedema too?
I would use it for everything under the sun because there isn't anything in your body, your joints, your anything. Prostate.
I've taken a tablespoon of it every morning for 30 years.
Will you put it in water?
I take it 3 times a day.
Yeah.
I just love it because I just think of all the purifying it's doing in my body, and I never have an ache or a pain. And
you must get it with the mother in it. And Bragg's is the best. I wouldn't use anything but Bragg's.
Bragg's. How many ounces of water?
Just to get it down.
And you want it to be good. You know, the real recipe in this book, and I would advise you all to get a book because you will not believe the things that it does. And and it's like $10 or something. But most importantly, you just know that it's working. And one of the things that happened for me was, I don't know what I was doing. Oh, I was working outside for hours on end, and I didn't get as much liquid. That night, I went to bed, and I had leg cramps for the first time. And I did our calcium, and I was up most of the night. The next day, I started doing my vinegar like I do 3 times, sometimes 4 times a day. And that night I had no cramping, none. I haven't had cramping since. So I know it works. And it's just another precious thing like Shaklee that you deserve to know, and you deserve to have the book. It really
How long did it take you to get used to the vinegar and the water? Because
I know what I was. Thank you, Marge, for asking that question, because I was on that track. The story goes. This is so cool. I have to tell you this. The grandfather would come in from the fields every morning, and he'd have his vinegar and honey, 2 teaspoons of vinegar and 1 teaspoon of honey. And so, and he fed it to his chickens. And every Sunday, the family had a chicken dinner. And the kids, you all know, kids get rebellious, and they say, this doesn't work. We don't need to do this. So that's how they were performing. And so he decided he's going to take one of those chickens from the flock and
eat it.
No, starve him of the vinegar. And when it was time for him to be served at dinner time, that people, his family was all around the table, and they all almost in unison said, "What's wrong with this chicken?" Well, he then poured out the story of what he did, and he said, "So you see, it does for chickens and their joints and every part of their body, just as it does for humans." And he tells that story in the book, and it's really a neat story.
The question I have is, how did you get used to drinking that vinegar?
Oh, okay. Well, when you put honey in it, I get raw honey. I mean, do a good raw honey. And at first I was doing it with the spoon, and then I'd have to lick the spoon. Then I got used to I put the vinegar in our 4-ounce squeeze bottle, and I have honey in a jar. I do not do honey in mine anymore, because I'd be getting way too much honey doing it 3 and 4 times a day.
Yeah.
But you will get, Marge, I promise you will get used to it, because you can put enough honey in to allow your palate to get used to it, and then withdraw the amount of honey in slowly. And I did that with protein when I wanted to use the DSP or the instant back in our day, Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
I would just do less and less of the juice and more of the water. And now I do my protein in water before I wake up. In fact, I do it all the time in water, because I don't want those extra calories in that fashion. I don't need them. I put the instant protein in our life plan, any of the drinks, any of the good drinks.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I promise you, Marge, let me hear you tell me you do that.
I didn't try it with the honey. I tried it with vinegar, and I gagged. So I will start with the honey. But
Yes.
I do have to tell you one thing. I was in Shaklee in the 70s or 80s and 90s, and talking about the instant protein, what my kids would do, they would take the instant protein with a little water, mix it up, and eat it that way.
Really?
And they loved
Interesting.
Like a pudding.
No peanut butter, no nothing.
No, nothing, just the regular instant protein that they had. I have to say, I wish they had that still, because when you put
They
that
do.
instant protein,
They do.
They have it.
no, the original instant protein, not the cooking one. You know, they have the energizing protein, that's sweet. If you put that with apple juice, apple juice is very sweet. I'm talking about the instant protein they had in the 80s.
I still have it. Well, they still have it, Marge.
No,
I use it every day.
Yes, they do.
No, it's a different product.
No,
Oh, it
it's
is.
a different product.
It is.
Instant protein?
Yeah.
The
It's not
plain,
the same.
the plain
No.
soy protein. The plain,
There's an instant protein that you mix when you cook, but
Yeah.
there was an instant protein you could
Yes.
put with apple juice, and it wasn't very sweet, and you could drink it right down.
Marge, I can't believe that you can't do that with our instant protein, because the instant protein is what I use in water. And it doesn't bother me at all now, but it sure did in the beginning until my palate got used to it. But I would say, because it doesn't have the carbs, if you put that into some good apple juice with the pulp in it,
Yeah,
I bet you that'll be delicious.
I'll have to get it and try it, because
Okay.
I always knew that was for just baking.
no,
Oh, no.
that was the baking enricher.
No, and in fact, that's what diabetics do if the ESP is not supposed to have any more carbs in it than what's in an apple. So if they can eat an apple, many times they can do our ESP. I've had some who are the exception to that. And then they go to the instant protein.
Okay,
Okay?
yep.
Yeah, and also if you're buying almond milk or soy milk or rice milk, you're wasting money. You just need to be using the instant
milk,
protein or the ESP along
Oh my
with the
gosh.
shake.
You sure do. I mean, I've got a paper on that is clear about the fact that if you're buying soy milk, it is such a waste of money.
Well,
Can
and
you send that to us?
also we don't get any PV on it either.
That's right. But the important thing is the isoflavones and the diazinon aren't there.
Barb, could you send that instant protein thing to us?
Sure,
Spelled on?
sure.
Yeah, send it to me, Barbara, and I'll get it to them. Barbara, Misty is asking for the name of the book on vinegar. Do you know, is it just Bragg's vinegar book?
Yes. In fact, Mitzi, there's maybe 3 or 4 out.
Yeah.
And you want the first one, you just want the
Old-fashioned one, yeah.
just on apple cider vinegar and all
Yeah,
of its
so-
uses.
So
And
Misty, Misty, you could just Google apple
Okay.
Bragg's apple cider vinegar.
Misty, I'm so glad you're on tonight.
She loves you, Barbara. She can't wait to get together with you.
Oh, I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah,
That's
great.
wonderful. We'll set
Okay,
that.
well, I'm gonna no, well, we asked Phyllis. You're asking about Gail. For some reason, it appears that she's having some issues with her sound. I don't know if she's hearing us at all. But we did record this,